Hey, Isotope, and anybody else who's joining me, welcome. It's a lazy Friday afternoon. Yesterday, I started a league with Soulherder, just messing around, and the very first opponent I was paired against was Nikachu, which is funny. I have been playing a lot more Soulherder than Merfolk lately. I've always liked brewing and developing decks, and since Merfolk doesn't get a lot of new cards all the time, there just hasn't really been the opportunity to do a lot of brewing with it. I'm kind of excited to test the new dual face card that is like a land or a clone. I think it's called like Glass Pool something or other. So that should be fun to play in some streams with Merfolk. But whenever I have just like free time to play, it's usually been on Soulherder, trying to figure out still like, you know, what works, what doesn't work. I just love the experimental nature of the deck. So I guess what I'm doing right now is more testing than just like trying to grind wins with what I think is like absolutely the best build, because I've got this Fiend Hunter in the deck, which you guys might have heard me talk about if you were with me on Monday for the Soulherder stream. It's just to sort of get a feel for the mana requirements that Skyclave Apparition. Because it's the same mana cost and similar templating for the abilities, except Skyclave can get rid of like anything, whereas Fiend Hunter only gets rid of creatures. So Fiend Hunter has actually been pretty bad, because there have been tons of spots where there's like artifacts on the battlefield that I want to get rid of, or planeswalkers that I want to get rid of, and I can't like neoform a snake into Fiend Hunter to get rid of a planeswalker, right? But I could neoform a snake to get rid of a planeswalker if Fiend Hunter was Skyclave. The main purpose, as I said, is to sort of get a feel for the mana. So I've definitely lost games where Fiend Hunter was Fiend Hunter instead of Skyclave. What was it called? It's called Glasspool Mimic. Is that the name? But apart from that, the deck is pretty much what I want to be playing. I'm actually pretty stoked. Somebody pointed out on the Discord, actually, the new Omnith Locust of Creation. Locust, not locust. Locust of Creation. And it seems pretty dope for a Soulherder deck. It's like when it enters the battlefield, it draws a card, so that's great. It's a 4/4, and then it's got 3 different landfall abilities that trigger depending on which landfall it is in the turn. Like if you landfall once, you gain 4 life. If you landfall twice in one turn, you get to add 4 mana to your mana pool, like red, white, green, blue. If you landfall 3 times in one turn, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and all the planeswalkers that they control. So the only way to really do that, I guess, particularly in the Soulherder deck, is to like leave 2 fetches uncracked, play a land, crack both fetches, get them to come in for triple landfall, deal 4 damage to the opponent. So it's probably not going to happen that much. But it's got the basic, when it enters a battlefield, draw a card text, which is awesome for this deck. And then basically every landfall that you make is gain 4 life, which is pretty awesome, because basically a lot of our flex slots, well, not a lot, but we do enjoy some of our flex slots gaining life, because we're a super dirtily slow deck. And like Thragtusk, for example. Thragtusk, it's amazing because it gains chunks of life. It makes a bunch of little 3/3s that can block prowess creatures and stall out the game. So if Omnith is just gaining, for example, play a fetch, you gain 4, pass to the opponent, crack the fetch, gain 4. Pretty hard to fight that life gain. So anyhow, not just excited to test Skyclave Apparition, but now I'm a little bit stoked to test the new Omnith. It does have red in the mana cost, but as a singleton, I'm going to be looking to like Neoforum and Eternal Witness and get Omnath. That's kind of a sick combo, I think. But anyhow, we're here to see this replay against Nikachu. Isotope, what do you say here? Have you tried testing that elf that makes squirrels? Well, yeah, I have. It's called what is it? Deep Forest Hermit, something like that. I know the name for sure. It's just been a while. So yeah, Deep Forest Hermit. It's really good. The thing is though, as I was saying a second ago, we do like to have a little bit of life gain in the deck. And when I had to choose like my finisher for this build, I went with Thragtusk just because gaining 5 life, like, and then ephemerating it and gaining 5 life, it does make tokens as well. It just makes fewer of them, like than Deep Forest Hermit. So Thragtusk makes 3/3s, gains huge chunks of life. I just feel like it's better placed in the metagame right now with tons of prowess decks around. But Omnath would just probably replace Thragtusk because it gains the life and it draws cards, and it's a 4-drop instead of a 5-drop. So if you play it on turn 5 with 5 lands, you can play Omnath and then play your land and start getting landfall triggers right away. It just lowers the curve in the deck a little bit. It does add the red requirement, so I'm not sure it's going to work out, but it's always nice to have new cards to try out. So Bouncing Yeti, thanks so much for the subscription. Super happy to see you here. You know what? I was checking out Nikachu's like a replay of his God, I don't even really know the proper name of it, but it's like Coffee and MTG or something like that. And it's something that I hadn't really watched before, but it's a really nice little segment where he just, talks about decks, talks about Magic, Merfolk, and talks about coffee. So it was pretty cool, and I saw a lot of you guys join him for that. So that's it was pretty cool to just see like the whole community just like saying good morning, talking about what flavor coffee they like and stuff like that. So anyhow, why don't I go ahead to this replay? I'll tell you off the bat that I won this match against Nikachu. It's kind of why I'm psyched to show the replay. I'm not sure I would be so psyched to show it if I got crushed, but I think it's a nice replay that shows sort of how complicated Soulherder is and the different kinds of lines that you have to navigate, and how it can line up favorably against even like an aggressive unblockable deck like Merfolk. So let's go ahead and go to that replay real quick. So Nikachu down here. So this was yesterday, I don't know, yesterday evening, early evening, I think. So let's check out the opening hands. I won the die roll. I love Nikachu's avatar. I think he has 2 cats, so he uses this like Amonkhet cartoon cat. This hand for me is a keep. It's got lands. It has a snake. It even has like ramp to Uro. I think if one of these lands was another snake or really any other like spell, it would be better. But really, this is pretty close to like a slam dunk opening hand for Soulherder. It's just slightly land heavy. So Nikachu immediately said, "Hey, good luck." I don't think he saw like even who I was, and so I said like, "Hey," and then he was like, "All right, like, good to see you." And yeah, I was asking him some questions about his build. I mentioned how M. Hayashi, like, we're only like 4 days out from the end of the league, and it looks like M. Hayashi is going to maintain his lead and close out the league on top. I think he's currently ahead by 6 trophies, and so in 4 days, the likelihood that somebody chasing him is going to get 6 trophies and like M. Hayashi will just not get any, slim to none. So keep an eye on that if you do play leagues on Magic Online. It's I don't know. It seems like kind of an awesome thing that a Merfolk player is going to top the entire league cycle. All right, so I open with Noble Hierarch. Nikachu opens with Mutavault and Ether Vial. He actually correctly guessed in the chat that I let's see if I can just open something up here. Yeah, on my replays, it doesn't let me pop open the chat. He correctly guessed that I was on Soulherder since it was, he said, it's not Wednesday, so you're probably playing Soulherder. And he just, he hit the nail on the head. So for my second turn, we want to use our mana as efficiently as possible. Actually, Oro lets us get some of these extra lands onto the battlefield too. So pretty easy choice to just crack this fetch. Now, I actually got a forest just because I was trying to not play islands, but through the course of this particular turn, I was just like, I'm going to have to play islands. And I said to Nikachu, I was like, sooner or later, I'm going to play an island. I thought maybe I could get by with Noble Hierarch, but, we're going to want a double spell. And the basic forest. Played Oro, gained the life, drew another snake, which is quite nice. Means next turn, if I play blue now, I can even double snake. So tap Hallowed Fountain, Oro goes to the graveyard, and turn gets shipped back to Nikachu. All right, Ether Vial is going to go up to 1. Plays an island. That means if I play any Merfolk, I'll have Island Walk as well. All right, so Smuggler's Copter. This has been, I don't know what I want to say exactly. It's kind of a throwback, I guess, to earlier Merfolk lists, closer to when Kaladesh first came out, and we all thought that Smuggler's Copter was a great addition to the deck. Lots of decks that are low to the ground were playing with Smuggler's Copter. I think it's actually banned in Pioneer, right? It's that efficient of a card. So pretty awesome. So I asked Nikachu, like, how's Smuggler's Copter been doing for you? He said it's been great, except when he plays against Karn, the great creator, which makes a lot of sense, obviously, shuts it down. But you just sideboard it out against Eldrazi Tron, right? Very efficient card. I don't think there's ever really going to be any answer about whether particular cards deserve to be core in Merfolk or not. There's very, very few cards that are core at this point. It's just the Island Walk Lord, Silvergill Adept, Merfolk Trickster, and I guess that's probably about it. You've got Islands and Mutavaults and Ether Vials too, but for such a well-established deck, I feel like Merfolk has like the most flex slots. So Smuggler's Copter definitely a sweet option. Nikachu gets it down on turn 2. So on my main phase, well, I drew an Eternal Witness for the turn. Nothing really amazing to get back yet from the graveyard, like just getting Uro back, not that fantastic. So let's see what I can draw off of this Icefang Coatl here. So Venser is actually pretty cool. Nikachu, between getting the Ether Vial down, getting the Smuggler's Copter down, not the most aggressive start, so I could potentially gain a little bit more time even by slowing his first attack, by getting Venser, maybe bouncing a Lord, catching an attack sort of off guard, potentially eating or trading with one of his creatures. So I'm actually going to play the second Icefang right now. It's going to establish Death Touch right away. I could potentially try to snipe the Smuggler's Copter, but I don't know exactly what Nikachu is working with, and if he's on a build with like main deck Deprives, I'd kind of rather not run the Snake into a Deprive, so that was part of the thought process. All right, and Stonehorn, those are two very nice top decks. Obviously, we really want a lot of time just to establish some kind of lock, and Stonehorn is a Singleton in the deck, and it's definitely excellent in the matchup. So play a fetch. It will allow me to maintain Death Touch with the basic, even if one of these Ice Fangs bites the dust. The art is also nice. Are we talking about Eternal Witness, or are we talking about Smuggler's Copter? Because both of the arts are pretty nice, but I really, really like the art on this Eternal Witness. It definitely grew on me. I thought it was a little bit garish at first, a little bit too, well, I don't know. Doesn't really fit. It's red against green, kind of weird. But now the way that it just jumps out when it's on the battlefield is very pleasing, I think. But I'm not sure which card you're talking about, Isotope. Okay, so Nikachu, before playing third land for the turn, play Silvergill Adept. That's good sequencing. Revealed, I believe, Lord of Atlantis. Oh no, Master of the Pearl Trident. So he's got that up with Ether Vial. No reason to put it in yet. Looks like he either found a Mutavault off the top, or that was just the best land drop he had. Choosing not to get in an attack with Smuggler's Copter, I guess because of the double Death Touchers. All right, so that'll allow me just to get a land out of the deck. I chose to just get another Hallowed Fountain tapped. It's an opportunity to get a shock onto the battlefield without taking any damage, and I've got another basic in hand just to sort of shore up the Death Touch aspect of the Coatls. Canopy Vista continuing to draw lands, but I can't really complain since I did hit these two nice draws between Stonehorn and Venser. So I had to think a little bit about like what the best play might be here. As I mentioned, I could potentially, get some value out of bouncing a Lord, and then surprising an attack with blocks and potentially getting some favorable trades or something. But he's got the Ether Vial out, so if next turn he just like casts the Lord, then bouncing it isn't amazing because he can just Vial it back in. Oh, so Copter does have pretty cool art. I do like the perspective of it a lot. It's a kind of a cool courtyard, and this Copter must have just smuggled something out of this like little palace or something. So yes, I do like that art quite a lot. So I think I just decided to slam the Stonehorn here. Just blank the next attack. First, I'll go to combat. I think I can afford to get in with Exalted here for 2. I doubt Nikachu would want to trade his Smuggler's Copter to prevent 2 damage. All right, so he takes 2, goes down to 18. We'll get the Stonehorn on the battlefield. Unfortunately, I can't double spell this turn, but I should be able to next turn. All right, he's probably going to vial in that Lord that he revealed, and that was the case. So on to Nikachu's turn 4. He's going to probably leave that vial on 2. I'm not playing with any companion, so taking up for Luris is not a thing. Spreading Seas on my Canopy Vista. I joked that I actually needed more blue mana. So no attacks because of Stonehorn. I just play out the Misty that I drew off the top of the deck. Getting a little bit flooded, but I can play Eternal Witness here. I'm going to get back Uro just for some value, but I don't think I'm going to cast it this turn, just because I do have this Venser in hand. All right, so once again, I think I have an attack here with the Coatl, but I guess I chose not to. With Soulherder, I mean, I think yes, Hoodrat. This is me versus Nikachu. Last night, I was paired against Nikachu in the first round of a new league. I'm playing a list with a few sort of experimental elements, the biggest one being Fiend Hunter, which is actually like a sort of a placeholder for Skyclave Apparition, which is definitely going in the deck. I wanted to sort of get a feel for how many white sources I need to support the double white of the Fiend Hunter / Skyclave mana cost. Got paired immediately against Nikachu and had a fun match. So for those of you guys who don't really play Soulherder, against an aggressive deck like this, what we're looking to do is prevent attacks with Stonehorn, whether we need to go grab that by like neo-forming an Eternal Witness into Stonehorn or like casting Chord of Calling, and then kind of repeat it with Ephemerates or just getting a Soulherder on the battlefield to repeatedly blink the Stonehorn. And then over the course of many turns, we'll draw Path to Exiles and other things that just can deal with the opponent's board. And eventually we can just win in the air. So that's the general plan. Let's go ahead and see Nikachu's turn 5. Okay, leaves Aether Vial on 2. Main phase activates. Nikachu has 5 cards in hand, plays another Lord. All right, so looking like he's going to get in a decent attack here, but doesn't activate the Mutavaults, which was interesting. I thought I was sort of going to have to be set here to like take a bunch of damage. I was expecting like 4/4/4. Maybe I would bounce one of the Lords or something like that with Venser. But he didn't activate the Mutavaults, so nothing too scary here, actually. Just going to take 4 damage, go down to 16. Obviously can't block since the double Lords, right? I guess he was potentially playing around something because I obviously got Uro back from the graveyard but didn't cast it. So he's thinking like I've got something going on. Plays a tapped Botanical Sanctum, 3 cards left in hand, and that was all he had for the turn. So end step, I definitely want to play the Venser. What do you guys think you bounce in this spot with Venser? It was kind of a difficult decision. Like, I definitely want him on the battlefield because I have the 4 mana available, but there's really no obvious best choice, I think. Playing around paths, sure, I guess, but is that how Merfolk roll in this spot? Do you really not attack with either Mutavault? Pretty conservative, unless Nikachu himself is holding up. Maybe he's holding up like Hardcast Force here. He could also be obviously holding up Deprive. Could be holding up Harbinger. Could be holding up Trickster. There's a lot of different things. So Isotope says probably bounce the Smuggler's Copter. So for me, I felt like I would prefer, I think, to get Aether Vial off the battlefield. I know that as a Merfolk player, I typically like later in the games if the opponent like wastes removal on an Aether Vial. But just being able to play a little bit more to what is on the board and not have to worry about like an infinite number of tricks through Ether Vial. It seemed like the call for me. I'm not really afraid of Smuggler's Copter since I've got my sort of wall of Death Touchers up. So I went with Ether Vial for now. Remember, if I draw Ephemerate, I can start bouncing other things with Venser. So I'm going to draw a card for my next turn, plus I'm going to draw a card with Uro, and effectively negate this last turn with the life gain. So Neoform is a really sick top deck. So I've said a bunch of stuff already. This stream just now in this match about what the goal is against Merfolk. So playing Soulherder. So what would you guys? Maybe some of you guys watching the stream actually play Soulherder. I'm not sure if you're all Merfolk fans or if some of you are Soulherder fans. But what do you think the play is here with Neoform? I can show you the list. It's actually over here on the left. I'm not 100% sure that the Cardboard Live is like every single card correct, but I think it should be. So Neoform, you sack a creature and go get something exactly 1 mana more, right? So I could sack Hierarch and go get a snake. I could sack a snake and go get a 3-drop. I could sack like Stonehorn and get Thragtusk. A lot of options. I can pull up the list here if you guys are interested. Okay, so you only play Merfolk, but you like Soulherder. Cool. So this is the creature base here. Fiend Hunter is an option. Deputy is an option. Soulherder is an option. Muldrifter, pretty cool. So I'll go back to the game. You guys can let me know what you think. Yeah, well, that's generally the idea with Soulherder, is to get something with like a crazy ETB effect. But let's see. For me, I mean, it seems like playing Uro first is the way to go, just because could draw something more important, like something a little bit more relevant. Like if we draw Ephemerates, might change what we want to do. So let's get Uro on the battlefield, gain a little bit of life, see what card we draw, and see if it affects what we get with Neoform. So Teferi is a very interesting draw because Neoform. Well, let me let Uro resolve now. Neoform is. I actually sideboard this card out against any deck that might have counter spells because you have to sacrifice a creature as part of the cost. So it is a blowout if it gets countered because it's a 2-for-1. Unless the opponent is forcing, in which case it's a 2-for-2. Still feels bad to get it countered. So Teferi actually a beautiful draw off the top because you can see I've got exactly 5 mana. So definitely going to go ahead and lead with Teferi. If Nikachu is working with counter spells, he's going to have to use it on the Teferi, or otherwise, make whatever plays he has to make on this turn. All right, so it looks like he's casting. I see his life total going down. Dismember on Stonehorn, which definitely does change the situation a little bit. Hey, McDerp. I'm just going through this replay right now with a very fun match I played against Nikachu yesterday. I'm at sort of a critical turn. I just played an Uro. I drew into a Teferi, which is really cool because I get to play it out ahead of Neoform. Dismembering Stonehorn is a really good call, very smart play by Nikachu, because the play here is to Neoform a snake into Soulherder and then blink the Stonehorn on the end step and just start to prevent all of their attacks. Like, unless Nikachu has Dismember, which he actually does, he wouldn't be able to really deal with the loop. I guess you can Trickster a Soulherder before the end step so that it doesn't get the end step trigger. So it is a little bit fragile against some of what Merfolk has to work with, like some of their tools. So I cannot sort of blank their next attack by getting Soulherder at this point. So Nikachu, now it could have been a blowout if they dismembered and the last card in my hand was an Ephemerate. In which case, I Ephemerate the Stonehorn, it blinks, and then he loses not just the Dismember and the life, but also I get to blank their next attack. But I don't have an Ephemerate, so Stonehorn is going to die. Now, it's totally possible Nikachu still has a force, and maybe he thinks that Teferi is not a big deal, because he's got Island Walk. He can just kill Teferi with a single attack pretty easy, right? He's paying some cost here. So he has a Brazen Borrower, super interesting. So what is he going to bounce here? Oh, I'm sorry. He's not casting Petty Theft. He's just playing the Brazen Borrower, just to get a body down on the battlefield. So Teferi has resolved, which is cool because now the coast is clear to Neoform. But once again, we have like with Uro, we have an opportunity to draw a card before committing to do something with Neoform, and Teferi's going to die anyway, so we might as well go ahead and just minus Teferi to bounce, I guess, a Lord, draw a card, and see what we're working with. I actually told Nikachu on this play, like, I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit of time. You can see I'm like falling behind. There's just so many lines that we could possibly take. And the deck continuing to treat me extremely well here. Court of Calling just further sort of bifurcates the branches on the decision tree. Now I can play at instant speed, which is pretty sweet because I've got Teferi on the battlefield. So what are you guys thinking at this point? You guys saw the deck list. If you want to look again, it's over here on the left. Do we use these 2 mana right now to Neoform for something good? Do I hold up Cord during Nikachu's turn to do something good on his turn? Any thoughts on potential lines here? I know it's a little bit unfair to ask some of you guys like what the line is since you don't play Soulherder. But maybe it's an opportunity for you to check out the deck list and just sort of start to wrap your head around what to expect when you play against this deck, because it is slowly becoming more popular. You do see results, if not like every league posting, every other, or once every 3 or something. Neoform on his turn is also a cool idea. You guys think for just 1 second. I'm going to fill up my water, and then we'll continue with the match. I'm sorry, Hoodrat, you're asking what is Soulherder deck archetype as far as like mid-range combo aggro, that kind of thing. It's definitely kind of like a mid-range prison deck. It has a lot of value elements. Like pretty much every card we play that's not a mono dork has an enters the battlefield ability, because we want to blink our creatures to get repeated value with cards like Ephemerate and Soulherder. And it has prison elements like Stonehorn, where you can repeatedly blank the opponent's combat step. And I play a playset of Force of Negation and a playset of Path to Exile. So if you have Eternal Witness, it creates its own loop with Ephemerate, because you can target it, blink the Eternal Witness, get something back from the graveyard, like a Path to Exile, kill one of their creatures, and then on your next upkeep, you get the Ephemerate rebounding, you target the Eternal Witness, get back the Ephemerate, and then for the rest of the game, you can every single turn cycle get back a Path to Exile, get back a Force of Negation, get back whatever you need to get back. So the deck is really good at locking opponents out of the game. Sorry, some weird noise. Some car alarm is going on outside. So anyhow, guys, yeah, Toolbox. It's a Toolbox deck. It's kind of a controlling deck. Hoodrat, best matchups are against other more traditional mid-range decks like Jund. As long as we don't get our hand totally ripped apart in the first 2 or 3 turns, and we draw like normally, if we draw a snake or 2, draw an Eternal Witness or 2, usually it's hard for those decks to keep up with the value that we generate, and it can be hard for them to push damage through like an extremely wide board of creatures. That being said, Jund, it's not an auto win. I'd say it's like sort of 55-45 in our favor. Ponza tends to be way more favorable. Ponza is definitely one of our best matchups. I'd say that Infect is one of our best matchups, between having a playset of Force, a playset of Paths, a playset of Death Touch Snakes for their Inkmoth Nexuses. And then, you know, we also have stuff like Stonehorn Dignitary, which obviously Infect doesn't want to see. So really any combo matchup is sort of okay, again, because of the playset of forces. Like when I get paired against Neo Brand, all I have to do is mulligan to a Force of Negation. I also have some really nice stuff in my sideboard for combo decks, like against, again, Neo Brand. I'm bringing in Pithing Needles and just naming Grizzlebrand. Like, you know, it's that matchup tends to be a buy. So pretty good against combo decks because we're a force deck. Decent against creature decks because we have lock elements and a playset of paths. Matchups that are our worst tend to be, like Titan decks, Field of the Dead. We only have really Deputy of Detention to be able to deal with the zombies, which is a very strong tool. It's just that we need to be able to find it. We have only singletons in the deck of a lot of these cards, and so we either need a Neoform or a Court of Calling or just naturally draw the Deputy. Against Titan decks, I've started running 3 Ashioks in the sideboard, and it's actually helped quite a lot. Big mana is yeah, that's the correct answer. So anyhow, on with the game. I chose to just pass the turn because I do have Teferi. I can play Neoform at instant speed if I want. I can also play Cord. Prowess is not a bad matchup. Particularly, I mean, it's very, very draw dependent. Like if I draw only Shocklands, it gets like way more difficult because just losing 4 or 6 damage to your lands obviously is going to make the matchup incredibly difficult. But I have 3 Celestial Purges in the sideboard on top of my 4 paths. I have Spore Frog, which you can loop with Eternal Witness to just never let them attack. Again, you have Stonehorn Dignitary, you have Uro and Thragtusk for life gain. Thragtusk is insane against Prowess because you gain massive chunks of life, and every time you blink Thragtusk, you're gaining more life, and you're making like blockers that are typically going to kill Prowess attackers. So it's not unlosable, but it's very winnable. It's pretty 50-50, I'd say. There's lots of different Prowess matchups, and I'd say the best one, and it's funny because if you ask I'd say Burn is worse than Prowess for sure because they're going upstairs nonstop and they don't care about their creatures as much as Prowess does. Against Prowess, if we just Celestial Purge a couple of their creatures, they could sit there and do nothing. Like they've got lava darts, you know. It's okay. You kill a couple of my snakes, not a big deal. I'm just like Neoforming for things like Stonehorn Dignitary. You're not attacking. I'm casting Uro from the graveyard. I think CFT SOC3. He's one of the best Soulherder players. He's said that Prowess seems incredibly difficult, but our 2 decks are very, very different. He plays with Aether Vial, and a slightly different sort of creature configuration, and he thinks that Prowess is a very difficult matchup, particularly Black-Red, he was saying, but I find Black-Red Prowess to be probably the best matchup for me, for my deck, out of all the Prowess versions, because they have some dirtily cards, like they play Cling to Dust, they play Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Unearth, spells that are not killing you right away. And all Soulherder wants is like time, right? And so if you're casting Thoughtseize, we're drawing a million cards. Like we don't really care about Thoughtseize. On top of playing things like Thoughtseize, I run 2 Veils in the sideboard, so like it's a massive blowout if we get to Veil a Thoughtseize. Whereas, if you're playing against like mono red Prowess, it's going to be a little bit harder because they're just coming like pretty hot and heavy, just like lots of creatures, lots of burn, stabilize or lose immediately. Black-Red is just like kind of slow, like letting you do your thing. So yes, I think I agree with that, McDirt. All right, on with the match. Definitely holding up this stuff, but I don't think any of you guys have actually said what you think I should do with either of these cards. I heard one person say that I should cast Neoform on the opponent's turn. So any thoughts, like what I should do? So Nikachu, it's his main phase. Last turn, I bounced one of his lords with Teferi. He's just going to slam the lord right away. And looks like he's activating a Mutavault. And let's see. Beginning of combat. Looks like he still doesn't want to activate the Smuggler's Copter. The Snake's doing an excellent job in sort of curbing Copter from becoming like a value engine. Okay, so I think we're ready for combat. He gets in with Mutavault and Silvergill. Once again, playing conservatively, sees I have white mana up. Earlier, one of you pointed out... oh, you're right. I can't Neoform. That's true. I read the comment and assumed that I could Neoform. So that's not an option. So when I passed, I had the play in mind of courting for something. So now the question is, what do we do? What do we court for? Yeah, Teferi doesn't let you just cast sorceries whenever. You have to actually tick up to be able to cast sorceries. So currently these creatures have Island Walk. This Silvergill is trying to kill the Teferi. This Mutavault is trying to punch me in the face. So McDerp says Cord for Eternal Witness, get back Stonehorn. Seems like a very solid line. It's a good option. Anybody else have any ideas? I like to do these replays in this style, and if you guys find it obnoxious, just tell me to show you the plays, and I'll show you the plays. But I just think it's fun to try to figure out like what to do, because that's what Soulherder is all about. Is like there's just at any point you always have like 10 decisions. Hey Cactus, welcome to the stream. Hoodrat, what are you saying? Why don't I splash black if your deck is built around recurring creatures? Well, it's not really built around recurring creatures. That's a mischaracterization. We can recur whatever we want with Eternal Witness. The deck is built around blinking creatures, right? So maybe that's what you mean. It's Simic, which forces your color pie if you want value. Well, so the thing is, the reason that we're Simic has nothing to do with Uro. It has everything to do with our core cards. Eternal Witness has immense synergy with Ephemerate. It's just a 2-card loop that lets you get back the best card from your graveyard every single turn, on top of getting Ephemerate back and continuing it. So Eternal Witness is green, and then Soulherder, which is like our onboard blink engine, is blue-white. So that makes blue-white-green, which is our Bant base. And because we play Bant, we can play Uro. It's not like because we play Uro, we play Bant creatures. It's the other way around. So, no, it's all good, man. I'm here to tell you guys about Soulherder. You guys, I don't expect you to be like Soulherder experts. So, but to get to part of your question about why I don't splash black, I actually splashed black for like the last 2 months for Siege Rhino and Hostage Taker, both of which are really powerful 4-drop creatures with black in the casting cost that synergize with Ephemerate in a pretty crazy way. Like if you play Siege Rhino, 3 damage to the face, gain 3. Ephemerate, this repeated another Lightning Helix, and then you get the rebound, another Lightning Helix. Just Siege Rhino plus 1 Ephemerate is an 18-point life swing. It's 9 damage to the opponent, 9 life gained for you. A very easy way to close out games. The reason that I'm moving away from the Black Splash right now is that this card, Skyclave Apparition, is coming out, which exiles basically anything. And our deck really needs a lot of help dealing with things like Planeswalkers, troublesome artifacts and enchantments, and Skyclave is just like a massively flexible card, like just wrapped up in a neat little package, and it costs white, and so we didn't have any white costs in the mana base. Sorry, in the spells before adding Skyclave. So I'm moving away from the Black Splash to focus on being able to support not just white to be able to cast Skyclave Apparition, but also white. To have Ephemerate up for when we play Skyclave, because there's all sorts of tricks with Ephemerate with that card. All right, so Isotope, what do you got? Question, when Uro gets banned, what will take its place? Interesting question. Honestly, recently I completely cut Uro. The reason being is that every single deck in Modern is hyper prepared for graveyard stuff right now. Like every single deck with black in it is main decking Cling to Dust. Every single deck with green in it is playing multiple copies of Scavenging Ooze. You have Klothys hitting your graveyard. So Uro in like virtually every single match has just felt like well, explore or something to that effect, right? Like a growth spiral where you play it, you gain life, you draw a card, very good. You can ramp a little bit, but I found myself like maybe 10% of the time casting him from the graveyard. And so I just felt like maybe we had better options. Like playing Uro and then getting it clinged is pretty terrible because, yes, we drew a card off of Uro, but the opponent draws a card off of Cling, and it gets rid of, like, imagine we keep a hand on the strength of Uro, and then it gets clinged, like we're just in a massive hole. So I cut Uro entirely, and I think we should be sort of fine if Uro gets banned. Right now, if you check out the deck list, I only have if the deck list might still show 2 Uros, I'm not sure. But I am on 1 because it is such an effective card. It crams so much into one spell that I just feel like we need to have a singleton. Against some decks, in some situations, it is just going to be the nuts. So I do still like Uro as a singleton. This has been a really, really long turn cycle, and I'm gonna sort of get to the point now. So the best guess we've seen so far is McDerp saying to go get Eternal Witness for Stonehorn, and then I could get Soulherder. But for me, the best play seemed to be Cord. Well, I'll just show you guys, and you can tell me what you think. So I corded for Deputy. I'm going to take the Lords away. Now, this is in combat, so the opponent, even if Nikachu has a Dismember, he's not getting these Lords back in combat. So now I can use the Deputy to eat his Silvergill Adept. So it's a 1-3 against a 2-1. Obviously, it's just a huge swingy play, right? So I'm getting a new creature on the board, and I'm taking away 3 of his. So I think that's like a 4-for-1. Teferi's going to get to live because the Silvergill is the one that was attacking Teferi. The Mutavault can go ahead and hit my face. And then on my turn, McDerp, I can cast Neoform on a snake to go get Soulherder and start blinking things. Without those lords, their attacks are already kind of neutered, so I should have plenty of time to hopefully get the Stonehorn back on the battlefield. I can also Neoform for Eternal Witness and go get Stonehorn. That's a line. All right, so plays an Ether Vial out with that extra mana. Thragtusk, pretty nice draw. Again, we're always trying to stabilize. Thragtusk, pretty key for that. Tick Teferi up. Might as well just play Thragtusk. Gain the life, still above 20 on turn 7. And honestly, I can't quite recall what I did in this spot. I did just tick up Teferi, and so I can Neoform on Nikachu's turn if I feel like it. But honestly, like I think I forgot in this game that the whole sorcery on the opponent's turn thing. One thing's for sure is I should be able to get in here, I think, right? Yeah, so let's go ahead and crack in for 2. You can see Nikachu's life total slowly working its way down. Merfolk doesn't tend to run a lot of life gain, unless I guess there's like Sajiri Merfolk, but he's not even playing white, much less basic planes. So Hoodrat, I did not invent this deck. Gabriel Nassif invented this deck last summer. He took it to the finals of a Modern Challenge, like the first Modern Challenge he ever played with it. It was still a super unrefined list. It had just like 4 Soulherders, 4 Eternal Witnesses. I think he had Jace. He had a whole bunch of stuff that most people don't play these days, but all obviously very good cards. And he just sort of crushed his way through the entire Modern Challenge. And he actually lost in the finals to Blue-White Control. He won the first game pretty easily, just like wrecked the opponent. Then the second game took like 40 minutes, and then he actually lost to time. Nassif is an extremely methodical player. He takes his time, and sometimes he does lose to the clock, and he actually lost in the finals. So that was pretty rough, but it was really exciting to see this new deck, that it has such strong legs and can actually compete in Modern. So as soon as I saw that, I ordered the deck. I was actually in Spain on vacation when I was watching that, And I ordered all the cards on TCG Player, and when I got home to New York, my mailbox was just like crammed full of Magic cards, and I was like, it was just an orgy of opening up bubble mailers and seeing all these cool Magic cards. So I did not invent the deck, but Gabriel Nassif sort of, at a certain point, backed away from it. I guess, he plays lots of different decks, lots of different formats. But from that moment, when I first saw him playing the deck, it sort of just caught my eye, and I fell in love with the deck. And I'm a mod on the Soulherder Discord, and we're just in there every day talking about the deck. And I'm definitely one of the players in there that just plays it, I think, the most often. I'm playing it almost every day on Magic Online. And, just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, how the curve should be, what flex slots really overperform and which ones underperform. So, Hoodrat, I do like theory crafting. I do like brewing decks, and I used to do more of it before I actually got deep into Modern. The thing is that I really love Modern as a format, and it's extremely difficult to just like come up with from a ground up brew in Modern that can actually beat anything. So I tend to prefer decks that are slight underdogs that have room for development. Obviously, Merfolk sort of fits that bill. We are definitely an underdog in the format. There's tons of flex slots. You can run blue, blue-white, blue-green, Bant. You can run combo with Curio Folk. There's blue-red. You can play bolts. It's pretty wide open, and Soulherder's even more wide open than that. So I guess to that extent, I do brew. Underdogs unite, for real. All right, so to get back to the game, I can't really remember what I did here. I mean, it looks like I could probably neoform a snake for another herder. I think I'm going to neoform this snake since he attacked. I could get Witness, get back Cord, and then I would have up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd have more than enough to Cord for Soulherder. But I think I might have just neoformed Eternal Witness and went straight for, neoformed an Ice Fang into an Eternal Witness to get back Stonehorn, just like directly. Which, in hindsight, and that's one of the benefits of doing replays like this, in hindsight, I feel like I almost certainly should have neoformed for Witness, get back Chord of Calling, particularly since Nikachu can't counter anything with Teferi on the board. Get back Chord, have 2 Witnesses on the board, and Chord for a Soulherder, which can then start blinking Eternal Witnesses to get back Stonehorn that way, just for more value. But this way, I don't know, it potentially a little bit safer, just going straight for the Stonehorn, just to make sure it gets on the battlefield. So I'm sorry, that, I guess I went straight for the Soulherder. So again, there's so many decisions. This was yesterday, and I couldn't even remember what line I chose. So McDerp says, the stepdad who loves the kids way more than... Oh, that's funny. So, all right, I'm going to blink the Eternal... This, actually, I very much like that line. Again, Nikachu, unable to interact because of Teferi. If I get the Soulherder, I'm going to get a clean blink on Eternal Witness. So I didn't really even need the Chord to get that line. So you go get Soulherder, blink the Eternal Witness, get back the Stonehorn, pass the turn. Now, unless Nikachu has a Thoughtseize, this Stonehorn is definitely going to hit the battlefield. He has nothing close to lethal on the battlefield, and we should be good to go. Okay, so Trickster is an interesting one. It's going to let him get an attack in with Smuggler's Copter without losing it. But Trickster is also, as I mentioned earlier, a way to turn off Soulherder blinks for a turn. But he's going to get in. I'm at 22 life, so extremely healthy. He pitches an extra Ether Vial, I think. Going down to 16. He knows I have the Stonehorn in hand. I drew an Ephemerate for the turn. Actually, they attacked Teferi and my life total, so Teferi down. Of course, if I really want him back, I can always just blink Eternal Witness and get it. But at this point, we're kind of focusing on just like blanking their combat and trying to push some damage. Now, they do have 2 Mutavaults up. I could start getting in with something like Thragtusk, but if I get in with Thragtusk, they double block. I lose the Thragtusk. Thragtusk is a pretty nice thing to blink on the end step. It makes tokens, gives me more creatures to attack with in subsequent turns. Gaining 5 life just makes it that much more impossible for Nikachu to untap and just get like an Alpha Strike. Also, Ephemerate just huge because now I have the luxury of blinking something other than Stonehorn. And then if push comes to shove and he has a really big attack, I can, of course, always Ephemerate the Stonehorn at the last second to get rid of their attacks. So I think I'm just content to chip in with Ice Fang here and just deal like 2 damage a few times. You know, I could probably just calculate whether I have a lethal attack here. Like, let's say they block Thragtusk, they block Soulherder. They're definitely not taking 10 yet. It's just like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So not particularly close yet, but we can start getting in with the Ice Fang. So I do believe in this game that Nikachu kept their 7. I definitely kept my opening 7. It was a little bit land heavy, but I've definitely drawn very well in this game. So as I mentioned, with the Ephemerate in hand, I'm just super happy to blink the Thragtusk. You can see the value. You get all these triggers. You gain life. You get a 3/3. And as Cactus Owie Smock, I don't know how you say that, Cactus Owie Smock, as you said earlier, this deck looks so sweet. It is, in fact, super duper sweet. Nikachu looks like he's going to crack that Horizon Land. He's going to vial in a Kumena Speaker. Their attack is going to be blanked. I did play a Stonehorn this turn. Ether Vial, after being replayed, he just passes through. He's only got 2 cards in hand. I'm going to use this opportunity to try to blink Eternal Witness. If he feels like he can afford to counter it or dismember it, you know, it's sort of okay. I've got so many other important things on the battlefield that I would prefer, or that he should prefer to dismember. Like Deputy would get him back 2 Lords. Dismembering Stonehorn would just make so I can't blank his attacks. Dismembering Soulherder would also be very good. So I felt like even though he has a whole bunch of mana untapped here, just going for this here just seemed fine. And that was where Nikachu scooped game 1. So I mean, I guess I could ask you how to say it, but I can't hear your voice right now. So I'm just saying it how like a stupid American. I'm sorry. No offense to Americans. America's awesome. But you know, we're not necessarily always the most culturally aware of other places in the world. But a silly American might say, just read it, Cactus Owie Smock. Cactus Owie Smock. Is there like an accent like at a certain point? So anyhow, look at this board. It's so much fun. We've got a flying Death Touch Snake. We've got a crazy Rhino that doesn't let anybody attack. You got Venser that can do anything, basically. Venser often wins games by just bouncing all the opponent's lands. Deputy blew out Nikachu in combat, with Teferi making sure that he couldn't interact. Soulherder just does more of whatever we want to do. Eternal Witness does crazy things. I've got an Uro just waiting to come from the graveyard. Thragtusk letting me finish the game with 24 life against like a super aggressive unblockable deck. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so yeah, I remember you saying you were going to start streaming. All right, so let's go ahead to game 2, see how that one went. It was also a very interesting game, maybe more interesting than that game. And again, I just said up front that I did win this match. It's why I'm sort of a little excited to show it. Not necessarily because, oh my god, I beat Nikachu or something like that, but just I know the Merfolk community supports me, and they definitely have been following Nikachu for forever. It's just fun to see me play against Nikachu, and I think it's extra fun that I'm playing this deck that I've been, I don't want to say brewing, but developing for the last year or so. This is quite a nice hand. It doesn't have any elements that immediately sort of shut down his attacks. So let me go ahead and show you guys my sideboarding plan here. First of all, what am I taking out against Merfolk? I am taking out all of the forces, so that's 4 cards out. I'm taking out the Venser, just because if you saw in that game what it actually did, it's not super impactful in this matchup, I don't think. I bounced an Ether Vial when he already had a board established. So when I was trying to figure out like which cards to sort of trim around the edges and which are not that important. Venser seemed like a fine cut. So I took out 4 Forces and Venser. So that's 5 cards. I believe I brought in just 1 Pithing Needle. I didn't really want to bring in both just because you don't want to draw 2 Pithing Needles against Merfolk. You could name Mutavault and Aether Vial, but really I'm looking to just like cheese a game by naming Aether Vial and he gets stuck on lands or something like that. 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Veil of Summer. Again, there's not that many counter spells out of Merfolk. I'm not sure if he's bringing in extra counter spells against me or taking counter spells out. So just I hedged on my bet with Veil, so brought in 1 Veil, 1 Pithing Needle. I have really sweet tech that nobody else is playing except me. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. This card is an old card, but it was reprinted in Modern Horizons, and people sleep on it. It's a good card. Look at this guy. Maybe you guys can't see him because he's at the edge of the screen or something. You can see half of it or so. So Spore Frog is a fog. Spore Fog. Spore Fog. Basically, it's a 1/1 for 1 green. Let me bring it up over here so you guys can actually appreciate its glory. All right, so this card is from some really, really old set. I used to know the name of the set, but now I'm forgetting it. It was reprinted in Modern Horizons, and for a deck like this, it is such a slick piece of tech because I can play like turn 1 Hierarch, turn 2 play a land, play an Oracle. Turn 3 now I have enough resources already to Chord for a Spore Frog. It's a very easy thing to grab with Chord of Calling, and against an aggressive deck where you're trying not to die in the first couple turns, being able to get a Spore Frog on the battlefield against like Prowess, that they're buffing up their creatures, they're throwing 37 points of damage at you on turn 3. You've got like 2 snakes and a Noble Hierarch, and all of a sudden you just like get a fog out of your deck. It can be pretty busted in some situations. Also, it's kind of like you can build your own Stonehorn Dignitary by having an Eternal Witness and an Ephemerate or a Soulherder, because then every turn you get to get Spore Frog back. Really, I don't even think Soulherder works. I think it needs to be Ephemerate, because what you want to do is sack it on the opponent's turn, Ephemerate the Eternal Witness, get it back from the graveyard, play it on your turn. It's actually even stronger with Teferi, because then the opponent can never kill the Spore Frog on your turn, and you can always sack it on the opponent's turn. So it's a pretty cool card. So I brought in 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Veil of Summer, 1 Worship, 1 Winds of Abandon, and 1 Spore Frog. So another very fun thing that appeals to me about Soulherder is that it's just super technical. It's, you've got Teferi, which lets you cast Neoform on the opponent's turn. You've got Chord of Calling. So at any given point, it's like, do I need to get more creatures on the board for Chord? Do I need to be starting to think about getting a loop going with Force of Negation, maybe bringing in Ceremonious Rejection against Tron and getting some kind of loop going? When is it correct to get Uro? When is it correct to Ephemerate Muldrifter? Just super technical, super fun, super interesting. And I brought in literally 5 different singletons for this match. All right, so as I was saying, no tools like Spore Frog in the opening hand. We also don't have a Soulherder. We don't have Stonehorn Dignitary. Anything really to start building some kind of protection against the aggressive Merfolk deck. But we have very important elements. You've got Noble Hierarch letting us get ahead of curve. Coiling Oracle, very powerful with Ephemerate, lets us draw a lot of cards, potentially continue to ramp. A really strong combo in the opening hand here is Muldrifter and Ephemerate. For those of you guys who have never heard about this combo, you play Muldrifter, and it has 2 triggers when you evoke it. When it enters the battlefield, you get the draw trigger, draw 2, and you get the evoke trigger, which wants you to sacrifice the Muldrifter. So you put the evoke trigger on the stack first, and then above it, you put the draw trigger. So you draw 2 cards while the Muldrifter is still chilling on the battlefield, waiting to be sacrificed. if you can find an Ephemerate before you need to resolve the Evoke trigger, you can Ephemerate the Muldrifter. It'll blink, come back, right? Now, the Evoke trigger the Sacrifice trigger will still be on the stack, but it's referring to an object that no longer exists. And when it gets blinked and comes back, you didn't cast it with Evoke, so it doesn't create a new Sacrifice trigger. So effectively, when you cast Muldrifter for 3 mana and then evoke it, you draw 4 cards and you get a 2/2 flyer. And then on your next upkeep, you get the rebound from Ephemerate and you draw 2 more cards. So for 4 mana, you're getting a 2/2 flyer that draws 6 cards. It's really absurd. So definitely good enough to keep. So I'm going to keep that. And Nikachu kept his 7 as well. So hopefully it's going to be a good game. Okay, they just pass on turn 1. I'm going to play Prismatic Vista. I drew an Uro for the turn. We saw that Uro was pretty decent in game 1. I never needed to escape him, but it did gain me some life, draw me a card, let me ramp my mana. Hierarch down, no Dismember from Nikachu. And we see the Smuggler's Copter. Okay, so similar opening, just no Ether Vial, so a little bit slower still. So what do you guys think this turn? Am I going to play Coiling Oracle and Ephemerate it? Am I going to play Uro? Part of the point of these replay streams is just to get you guys involved. So in learning about Soulherder and thinking about Soulherder. So is it just time to play Uro and play another land? Am I going to Ephemerate Uro? That seems pretty good. Like if I play Uro and then play a land, I can Ephemerate the Uro, gain 3 more life, draw another card. Seems solid. I see Isotope says Uro turn. I think Uro's a nice option. Anybody else have any ideas about what I might want to do this turn? I think Uro's pretty good. So I am going to get an island. Even though Island Walk is a threat, it's just that we do need a lot of blue mana. So ramp 2 gain 6 is Cactus pointing out that seems pretty good. So let's see what we draw first of all. Now, if you guys haven't played with Uro very much, when you're playing with Ephemerate in particular, it's important that you stack your triggers correctly. You just as with Muldrifter, you want to put the Sacrifice trigger first on the stack so that you're drawing cards and then potentially responding to the Sacrifice. So let's see what we draw off of Uro. Deputy came in super handy in the last game, so I am going to go ahead and put a land on the battlefield. Now, Cactus Awismok seems to think that blinking Uro is the best way to go, but I don't know. I didn't really think so. I thought that just waiting to evoke Muldrifter and Ephemerate Muldrifter, potentially draw 6 cards, seemed like the better option. Of course, though, I mean, ramping, gaining 6, drawing another card off Uro also seems pretty good. But I chose to go with like chilling and just doing the evoke Ephemerate line. So I guess you guys will see how it works out, and potentially I could have gone with the Uro play. Ephemerating Uro. All right, so Nikachu for his turn, playing Silvergill, revealing a Lord of Atlantis. That's going to eventually give his creatures Island Walk. That's going to let him crew up the Smuggler's Copter. If I had a path, now would be a good time to use it. Yes, McDerp, thank you for pointing that out. Cactus, that's definitely something you need to keep in mind with Ephemerate. If this snake were an Icefang Coatl, then Ephemerating Uro would be a much better play, because when I get the rebound, I can flash in the Coatl, catch the rebound, draw another card, not waste the rebound. But if I Ephemerate Uro in that spot, I do get to put out another land. Actually, you know what? Well, yeah, but then I would be using this land. I wouldn't be able to get anything out to effectively catch the rebound. If I wanted it to go to the graveyard even, I'd have to target the Noble Hierarch. Just not. I don't think it's the best call in that spot. And for those of you guys who don't know, if you don't target anything with the rebound, then Ephemerate stays in exile, which is pretty rough for us since it's one of the best cards in the deck, and we pretty much always want it to find its way into the graveyard so we can potentially get it back with Eternal Witness. All right, so he's getting in with the Smuggler's Copter, pitches a Trickster. He must be looking for lands because Trickster seems like a very good card in the matchup to me. So plays a Cavern of Souls. Well, looks like he has lands. Interesting. Maybe he just found that off of the Smuggler's Copter. Okay, so I'm going to get a tapped Hallowed Fountain here. I do have 2 basics, and I have a Canopy Vista in the deck that can come in untapped, but I don't need an untapped land here, so I think I'm just going to get a Hallowed Fountain. Oh, Temple Garden. Sometimes it's like 50-50 because I had another land in hand. If I need more blue, I can just go get more blue. But I wanted to get a shock is the point. Snakes are great draws. So, yeah, he doesn't even have Deprive up in this spot. He could force my Ephemerate. He could dismember something, but the play for me here is definitely to go for Muldrifter plus Ephemerate. So I'm going to crack this first just so I don't draw more lands. Well, reduce the chance of drawing lands. Basic Island seems fine. Okay, Muldrifter, you can see how the stack works. We're going to put Evoke down first. All right, well, there's my Spore Frog. So that's going to let me start slowing down their attacks. And as I mentioned, just, this is an opportunity that should not be wasted. We go for the Ephemerate. But Nikachu has the Dismember, so potentially not terrible for us. We still drew 2 cards. Effectively getting our Ephemerate countered here. Sort of rough. But if he builds up a big board and I've got a Spore Frog down, we don't want him to be able to dismember the Spore Frog on our turn. So, again, not the end of the world. We drew our 2 cards. Nikachu had a timely dismember. I can use the Noble Hierarch mana to get my Spore Frog down now. Now, something I've learned actually against Merfolk specifically, but really it applies to any matchup, is you do not ever want to sacrifice Spore Frog unless your opponent is attacking for lethal. Like, if Nikachu attacks for 15, like, I'm not going to sacrifice the Spore Frog because he's just going to attack for more the next turn. And so if I can push back the moment when I sack it, it gives me more opportunities to draw important cards that can help potentially improve my position. Okay, so there's that Lord of Atlantis that was revealed earlier. And doesn't look like he has a 4th land. Crewing up the Smuggler's Copter. We'll see if he discards anything. Getting in with Island Walk and flying for 6. So again, definitely not going to sacrifice the Spore Frog here. I might even be able to wait another turn past this one, depending on what kind of cards Nikachu's working with. So he pitched another Smuggler's Copter. All right, so I've got a handful of excellent cards. It's just kind of a matter of figuring out, which ones we should play. Curious sequencing there. So that's actually, it's probably not that curious. I think there's a simple explanation. He must have drawn this Lord when he looted with Smuggler's Copter. Otherwise, he would have played it pre-combat and gotten in for a little bit more damage. So it looks like we probably will have to sacrifice the Spore Frog next turn. All right, well, again, lots of good cards. We're starting to get a little bit backed up on mana. We are a little bit ahead of the curve. We do have 5 on turn 4, so not a terrible spot to be in. What are you guys thinking about here? Lot of options. One might say too many options. There's not even like an optimal choice maybe. Like what are we doing? Are we deputying the Lord so that they don't have Island Walk? Are we playing 2 snakes? Are we playing Soulherder? Are we playing Eternal Witness? Lots and lots and lots of options. Ice Fang plus Soulherder seems very good. Could also play Coiling Oracle plus Soulherder. Coiling Oracle is nice with Soulherder because when you blink it on the end step, if you draw a land, it just goes straight to the battlefield, which is cool. It just gets to ramp. But in this point in the game, when you blink Ice Fang, it's nice that it doesn't reveal what we drew. So I do like that as a line. Any other ideas? I see there's a handful of you guys in here. for those of you guys still listening, you have any thoughts? Maybe I can escape Uro. Draw a card that way. That way I could escape Uro. If I draw land, I can play a snake. You guys think for another second. I'm going to fill up my water again. All right, so it looks like we don't have any other suggestions about plays for this turn. All right, so Cactus, if you were paying attention earlier, one of the loops in the deck is Eternal Witness, Ephemerate, Spore Frog. So I can play Eternal Witness here, get Ephemerate, and then on Nikachu's turn, I can sacrifice Spore Frog, Ephemerate Eternal Witness, and then just keep getting back Spore Frog. And that's going to gain me a lot of time. And eventually, as I get more lands, I can make that loop happen while developing other creatures onto the battlefield. So that's my choice here. Like, have to play defensively. I'm not sure why it's highlighting this Ice Fang Coatl. That's kind of funny. So play the Eternal Witness, get back Ephemerate. And, you know, since I'm blanking their turn here, I actually don't have to Ephemerate the Eternal Witness on their turn. So I'm going to sack the Spore Frog. It'll come back to me, and then I can Ephemerate on my turn, get back Spore Frog, cast Spore Frog, that kind of thing. So probably better here for me to cast one of my snakes. I chose to go with Coiling Oracle. It's kind of a tiny difference here since I can't really block anyway. And Stonehorn. So we're starting to draw pretty well. I bluffed an attack with the Spore Frog just to be, I don't know, funny. It's not that funny, I guess. So you would love to play Goblins against me, man. Goblins is a hard matchup for Soulherder. I think Goblins is pretty favored. I would try to bring in a bunch of Pithing Needles. Okay, so look, he's crewing up the Smuggler's Copter and attacking for 10, all of which we can't block. All right, so he's going to loot again and again, pitches an extra land. And yeah, we do have to sacrifice the Spore Frog here. So it's going to prevent all the damage. Now, worth pointing out that Spore Frog is not actual fog. So, like, Force of Negation can't counter Spore Frog. Force of Negation can counter Ephemerate, but it's never going to be able to counter, like, a creature. So Spore Frog is really good against, like, Death Shadow, because if you try to cast something silly like actual fog against Death Shadow, they're just going to cast Stubborn Denial. But with Spore Frog, you know, they can't counter creatures, so you're going to get it onto the battlefield. Okay, so my turn. So it's kind of a tricky spot here because I can cast Stonehorn no matter what. If John has a Deprive, it would be kind of rough when I cast Stonehorn, because I'd only have one mana left, which is not enough to Ephemerate and get back Spore Frog and cast it. So I had to think about what I wanted to do and in what order, and ultimately decided to go with Ephemerate first here, because if he has like a Dismember on Eternal Witness, then I can cast the Stonehorn and get another turn in the game at least. Okay, so he's actually casting Petty Theft on Eternal Witness, which is pretty much the same as Dismember in this case, because I'm not going to be able to recast Eternal Witness and get Spore Frog onto the battlefield this turn, because I only have green, and then blue. So that resolved. I don't have any counter spells. Ephemerate gets countered, and when it gets countered like that, it does go to the graveyard, which is nice. It doesn't get exiled or something. So now I just have to really pray that he doesn't have a Deprive in hand, and hope that the game can continue. And he didn't have the Deprive. So at this point now, we're again looking to just establish a lock. So Soulherder can start looping with Stonehorn. We can get back Spore Frog. We can get Ephemerate, Eternal Witness. So goes back to Nikachu, and he gets to, you know, play whatever he has. But he's not attacking on this turn. Okay, we have a Kumena Speaker. We have a tapped Botanical Sanctum, and he just passes back. Land in this spot is pretty amazing, just because it's the bottleneck right now. I've got just a hand entirely full of gas, and I just need to get things going. So, again, sort of a tricky spot here. And it's another spot where I think I can pause and ask you guys what you think you would do. Remember that Nikachu has been attacking with Smuggler's Copter a few times in the game, so he's been able to sculpt his hand a little bit. He didn't have a Deprive last turn when I cast Stonehorn. He could have more Dismembers. He could have drawn a Deprive on that turn. He could have Force in hand. What would you guys do here to try to make sure that we don't die next turn? Because that's the game plan with Soulherder a lot of the time, is don't die. Like, as long as you don't die, you can eventually win the game. Are we just going to jam Soulherder? Are we going to play Deputy, take away the Lord so that even if they do attack, they don't have Island Walk? Remember, Uro is always an option here. Again, we could cast a bunch of snakes, draw cards. Maybe that's what we want to do. Like, if we cast snakes and just naturally draw an Ephemerate, maybe that would be a nice option. All right. Well, what is Witness getting back from the graveyard? Spore Frog. Okay. Why not, for example, Ephemerate the Eternal Witness, and then get back Spore Frog? That puts Ephemerate into the exile zone and starts the sort of value loop. Because you were suggesting Eternal Witness, Soulherder, but if we get back Eternal Witness, Spore Frog, let's say that I play Soulherder, and I tap out, and then they have a... say that they have a Trickster to tap down my Soulherder. Now it's not going to blink the Stonehorn. I don't have a Spore Frog on the battlefield, and I just lose 2 attacks. So playing around Force of Negation seems reasonable. Seems reasonable. So I'm pretty sure that I played the Eternal Witness, and I did get back Ephemerate. First, I cracked the land. I'll go ahead and get that pain-free dual land. Gotta love it. And you know what? He kind of made my decision easy for me here. The Ether Gust sort of takes away any concerns about what to get from the graveyard, because I'm not going to get a trigger from Eternal Witness. But this is just fine now because he's tapping out. I'm definitely putting Eternal Witness on the top. It's one of the best cards in the deck. And now I can just play Soulherder. Like, all the stress goes out of the situation. Yeah, no, I like your line, Cactus. It was a very good way to play it. But I think that had the Eternal Witness resolved, I feel like I probably would have gone with Ephemerate. He already used one of his Dismembers. It's that much less likely that he has a second Dismember. And Ephemerate is just our sort of ticket to Value Town. So in this case, though, he tapped out. So I got to get a free blink in on Stonehorn. Every blink is super valuable. He just passed the turn. He's got 2 cards back in hand, but with no scrying, no looting. So it's time to go for Eternal Witness again. And now, as I mentioned, going for Ephemerate, and it's a lot safer now because I have Soulherder down. If I try to cast Ephemerate and he has something to counter it, I still have the Soulherder on the battlefield. So get Ephemerate back. Blink the Eternal Witness, it resolved, get back Spore Frog, put it on the battlefield. Now, I should say, and I will say, I didn't have to do that, right? I've already got a lock here. I can just keep blinking Stonehorn over and over again. But Nikachu has like overkill lethal on the battlefield, and if he has anything to deal with either Soulherder or Stonehorn, and I don't get back Spore Frog, then I just lose the game on the spot. So for me, it's much more important to have redundant protection than to try to pull ahead slightly by, you know, playing Deputy on the Lord, then he just slams another Lord, or just playing snakes and drawing cards, or escaping Uro, or any other very appealing plays. Getting back, you know, a little Spore Frog might seem potentially silly, but I'm pretty sure it's the best line here. Definitely can't attack yet. Nikachu has something, and he has the Trickster. So Trickster's tapping down Soulherder, which means that I'm not going to get to blink the Stonehorn. So I would have lost this game if I didn't get back Spore Frog. Like, it's that simple. Well, you know, I guess if I had played Deputy instead of getting Spore Frog, get rid of the Lord, I could have made some unfavorable trades to potentially not die, but he's just got a lot. I think I probably would have died. But this is just, it's so much safer, and I'm pretty sure I would have lost. All right, so crewing up Smuggler's Copter, he does get to attack because Stonehorn is not stopping it, but I do have Spore Frog. All right, getting in for what he can get in for, particularly just the loot, because I'm going to sacrifice my frog. Nikachu pitches another island. I'm going to take 0 damage. Untap, and the world is my oyster at this point. I've got the rebound coming. Going to blink the Eternal Witness. And whenever upkeep you blink Eternal Witness, it's always to get back the Ephemerate. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm pretty sure I'm just going to Ephemerate right away. Do the same exact play for a little while. And then I should have mana to be able to play other spells as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and play a snake, see what I draw. Drew another land, and since this snake has flash, there's no reason to play it now. Gonna blink the Stonehorn, and I think, you know, we could both sort of see the writing on the wall at this point. And it passes through a combat step. Looks like I'm going to get to untap and draw again. Let's get that Coatl on the battlefield first. Okay, rebounding again, going for Eternal Witness. Note that I didn't have to sacrifice the Spore Frog that time since he wasn't able to attack. So now I get to immediately pivot. I've got my redundant protection. I can just start, like, for example, escaping Uro seems like a nice line, right? Drew a land, and let's go for that escape. Okay, Uro hits the battlefield. I draw another land. I play a tapped Hallowed Fountain. Not a big deal. I think at this point I can start attacking in the air. If he wants to block with Smuggler's Copter, that's fine. If he does, I can, of course, just Ephemerate Eternal Witness at any point and get back another flyer and just sort of finish the game out in the air. So let's keep blinking the Stonehorn. Nikachu has a Brazen Borrower to flash in. I think we knew that. And at that point, he scooped it up. So, I mean, I think I drew very well in both games. I've definitely lost to Merfolk playing Soulherder. There was a time against a Merfolk deck when I had a Spore Frog out, and I had like a fetch land that I wanted to crack, and so I was like, maybe I should sacrifice Spore Frog now. And I just sacked it too early, and that really taught me the lesson that, like, you want to wait as long as possible until basically it's a lethal attack. That way, you don't have to devote resources like white mana to Ephemerate, green mana to recast Spore Frog, freeing up your mana for like one turn cycle to just get a bunch more stuff on the battlefield. Definitely valuable if you can afford to sort of wait a little while. If I had to say like what I think the percentages are against Merfolk, it has to be pretty even because they could draw a bunch of lords and like we just can't really do anything. Like if they can win before like turn 5 or turn 6. But, you know, Merfolk sometimes does push a little later into the game. They try to play that sort of tempo game, and if they don't have the lords, then there's really very little they can do against, you know, a bunch of Death Touchers and Yeah, it's probably pretty even. It's just a nice, fun, interactive matchup where the Soulherder deck is trying to just like stop the tide of damage, and it reminds me in a way, I guess it's not so much like prowess where it's like super explosive, like you're gonna die on turn 3 if you don't gain life right away. It reminds me more of the Boggles matchup, which I love. It's one of my funnest matchups, I think, to play with Soulherder, because sometimes Boggles can win on like turn 3, but they usually don't. Usually it's like turn 1 play a Boggle, turn 2 you're getting hit for like 4 with like Rancor and Hyena Umbra or something. Then turn 2 maybe you get hit for 8. I mean, it's turn 3, and maybe you're gonna die on turn 4. But it's like, okay, how do we deal with this? If they don't have what is that, Spirit Mantle with protection from creatures, then I've got like infinite like stupid snakes that I'm just like cycling to throw in front of the boss, basically like a 20/20 Boggle I can just block for nothing. I had one of the funnest wins against them. It was that kind of situation where they had like a 20/20 Boggle, and it didn't have protection from creatures, and I had Ephemerate, and there was a Force of Negation in the yard. So there's something called ghost blocking, where you can just block and then cast Ephemerate on your creature. And so I was blocking with Eternal Witness, ephemerating it. Eternal Witness was getting back Force of Negation, so that if they ever cast or tried to cast a Spirit Mantle, I would be able to force it. And then every turn I would just play a couple more creatures. The opponent would attack. They had like Spirit Link, so they were gaining. They wanted to gain like 20 life, but when you blink your creature, it takes their life gain away. It doesn't actually deal any damage. It just kind of gets taken out of combat. So after like 3 turns of that, the opponent just scooped in. It was it was pretty fun. So Hoodrat. Are there any Zendikar Rising card that interest you in the Soulherder deck? Why don't I talk about that for a minute before I wrap up this sort of mini stream here? I can open up, I guess, a browser. So I want to go to Mythic Spoiler. My hair is thick and thinning. Mythic. On my stream last, or I guess it was 2 days ago, my Merfolk stream, I went through like all of this stuff and talked about like the art on different cards, and there's some pretty sweet art in this set. But we want to talk right now about things that I'm interested in for either of the 2 decks. So scrolling through, there definitely are a couple things, but I'm just going to take a new. I think this is a pretty cool card. Not for either of these decks. I just think it's a cool card. Like you can play Orin. No, what is it? What am I saying? Orin. What is it? God, it's but let's go ahead. I'm gonna find. Oh well, here's one for Merfolk. Glasspool Mimic. I'm gonna just open that in another tab. And there's definitely one for. There's 2 for Soulherder that we can talk about. This is loading like really slowly. All right. This is another one. This is one of the ones for Soulherder, and then for Merfolk, I guess we can talk for a second about like the 1-drop, and maybe this is loading slowly because I'm streaming. I hope I'm not like dropping too many frames or anything like that. There's exactly one more Merfolk that I'm looking for. I might have passed it already. Yeah, I probably passed it. It's the one that takes artifacts. Are we crashing Chrome and my stream? I hope not. Oh my god, I feel like I must be dropping frames. Bear with me, guys. Maybe I can close Magic at this point. Maybe that'll open up some resources. All right, we're going to check these out. Seems like they're actually working now. So here it is. Okay. this is another Merfolk thing to discuss. And then there was one more thing. I'm going to open up the box topper art because it's wild. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about some spoilers real quick. No, I didn't want to open up Nimble Trap Finder. That's not one of the ones I want to look at. Let's go. I have really good internet. It's just seems like my computer is just protesting right now for some reason. All right, so let's start talking. Skyclave Apparition is the #1 spoiler for Soulherder. It fills a role in the deck that we've really kind of always wanted, but never really talked about. Like we haven't been sitting around saying like, man, we need things that like permanently deal with, like we need an ETB that permanently deals with planeswalkers or this or that or the other, because we already have things that sort of do that stuff, like Deputy of Detention can deal with planeswalkers. The issue, of course, with Deputy is that it's not permanent. It's like you play it, it takes away their Jace, and then they path it, and they get their Jace back, and they get to activate it again, and it's a whole nasty series of events at that point. I don't know why I just hit refresh. I'm just trying to stop these things from loading. Jesus, now it's got to load again. But so Skyclave Apparition, it's a 3-mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you exile basically anything that's not a land, that's not a token, and you can't control it, and it has to cost 4 or less. Seems like a lot of restrictions. Oh, my bad. Hodrat, let me calm this down then somehow. I'm sorry that the stream is choppy. Let me try to fix it. It shouldn't be choppy, but I can see that it is right now. All right. Are we dropping fewer frames now? Can you guys hear me? Is it terrible? All right, Hodrat, you're asking a very specific question about Outlaws Merriment. And if the stream is still choppy, can you please tell me? And if it's still choppy, then I'll just close Chrome. The stream, I think, is Chrome is really resource intensive, so it always slows down the stream. So whenever I stream, I make sure that I close Chrome. So it's a multicolored card, right? Outlaws something or other. Outlaws Merriment. I think it's red-white, isn't it? Or is it green? I can't remember. What color is it? I can just search for it. Okay. At the beginning, choose one at random. Now, are you asking about this for like a certain deck? So I see I'm skipping a lot of frames. At least I was recently. So again, Hodrat, if it's super choppy, let me know, and we can talk about this without Chrome. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one at random. So the random part is a bit of a bummer to begin with. It's a 4-drop, it's mythic, but every single turn you're creating a creature. So, is this party mechanic compatible, or is the card a trap? So, I assume you're talking about being compatible with... Well, I don't know if I can assume, because first of all, it's a red-white card, and it has nothing to do with blinking, so I don't think you're talking about Soulherder. And Merfolk is a blue deck, so not really sure if... You know what, I could talk about spoilers without Chrome. It's bumming me out. Let me get rid of that. So I think I don't think it looks like an amazing card. I think it looks like an incredible card in limited. I think if you open that, you probably want to draw it, like just draft it immediately. If somebody passes it to you, that's probably a mistake. I think it's something that should put you into red-white immediately, just because anything that just makes a creature every single turn, particularly at 4 mana, that's just going to win like every single game that you draw it in limited. But yeah, anyhow, just to answer your question about spoilers in general, Skyclave Apparition looks amazing. The Merfolk 1-drop looks bad. All the Merfolk 2-drops and 3-drops and 18-drops look bad. Glasspool Mimic looks very playable in Merfolk. It's the dual face card that can be a land, a tap land, or a clone of one of your creatures. You can actually you can vial it in. That's pretty awesome. Also, it has synergy with Deprive, where you can bounce. You can play it as a land, and then later on you can bounce it with Deprive and replay it as a clone. So that's pretty good. So yeah, there are some spoilers that I'm excited about. It's nice to have that with a new set. Sometimes you just totally don't get anything, and it's no fun.